Good evening, everybody. It is 7 p.m., September 11th. Will everybody rise for Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Roll call, we are missing one. Larry did send us a note saying that he would be gone this week for some personal business that he already had scheduled. So you get 4 out of 5. So before we move any further, I would like to take a moment of silence. It is the 22-year anniversary for 9/11, so everybody take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Even 30 seconds seems like forever, and I can't imagine what those families feel like every year when they have to deal with this. So, thank you, everybody. All right, first we need to adopt tonight's agenda. Does anybody have any changes they'd like to make for old or new business for tonight's agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I have one change. I would like to add discussion on long-term debt to old business. So it would be number 2, discussion on long-term debt facing the city of Taylor's Falls, and there's some handouts that are available for that.
Okay. So number 2, long-term debt under old business. Is there anything else?
I have something there, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
I'd like to add to number 9, repair culvert at West and Grove Street. The culvert has collapsed there.
All right. Tip, did you have anything that you wanted to modify or add?
I don't.
Okay. All right. I need a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda with the addition of old business number 2, long-term debt, and the addition on number 9, sidewalk repair and culvert replacement on West.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next, we will need to approve the consent agenda. Is there any questions on tonight's consent agenda? Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And moving right along here, staff reports. Are we good? All right, Michelle, anything you want to add or anything? All right, do we have anything from Kevin in Public Works that's not in the packet?
No, the only thing I'd say is when you look at some of the individual invoices, there's 1 or 2 that are related to the sewer repair here. And I just wanted to kind of give a kudos to our Public Works department. They're buying some of the materials, the larger dollar material items, so that we can avert paying the sales tax on it, because we are a not-for-profit. We can do that. The only other alternative we would have had is given kind of a onerous contractual agreement with the contractor to do that for us. And so I just wanted to say, nice job for Kevin and Paul on that.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on. I did not have any public forum sheets handed in. Does anybody wish to speak at the public forum tonight? Anybody? Okay. We're going to keep on moving right along here then. We do for old business, we'll go into number 1, budget continued. I'm just giving an update. On Wednesday, we'll have our final budget meeting. So we should have everything plugged in. and then we can review it, and that'll give us a chance to have one more budget meeting if we see any changes we need before we want to get it over to the county by the end of the month. So, other than that, Mary is off today, so she'll be back tomorrow to finalize getting everything put into the budget right now, and then we'll be sharing that with everybody at the next meeting. So. All right, sure. Number 2.
Yeah. And I'm just, be real quick, I just wanted to bring this to everybody's attention, the council and the public. It is a long-term debt chart. So this is the long-term debt facing the city of Taylor's Falls. There has been a decline overall. After I plugged in the 2022 numbers from the audit, it appears that we are still $1,392,000 that we owe, so we have an outstanding balance. All the funds are listed below on the graph. They're all there. And I have asked to bring this to a point of discussion at our next budget meeting, and I've also asked the clerk treasurer to inform us what funds these are paid out of. So on each of these loans, we'd like to know what funds they're paid out of, so we know actually what our balance is. And that was really it. There's also a chart to go along with it. There are some of the funds that were paid off. 2014, there's a geo improvement bond was paid off. You'll see there are 2 Chisago County loans. One of them was rolled over into the other one. It looks like that was done 2019. Yes, might have been rolled over. Capital leases. The drinking water revolving fund currently has a balance of $262,000. Geo improvement refunding bond, $360,000. There's a geotax increment improvement bond, $625,000, and then of course the Chisago County loan. We've had some discussions on the commercial lot. The city still owes $145,000 on that.
I did a little research on that too, because I wasn't sure if there was a debt ceiling or debt limit that municipalities had. In Minnesota statute 475.53 has a limit on debt, and except for first-class cities, which is 2%, municipalities can't exceed 3% of the estimated market value of taxable property. So we're currently at we were at the end of 22, I believe, at about 33% of that tax or debt capacity. Now, I'm not advocating for anything higher, but it seems pretty reasonable for a city. I've not done any compares, but we're way below the allowable limit.
Thank you, Tim. Lee, you have anything you want to add? No. Troy, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Well, thank you for bringing this. I look forward to digging more into the budget meeting on Wednesday. All right, we're going to move right along here to new business, and Sheriff Thine or Kyle Jones, Sergeant Kyle Jones are here with us. We'll get you another chair here. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Thanks for having us here tonight. Talk a little bit about the contract. But first I'll let Sergeant Jones introduce himself and talk a little bit about himself. I don't think he's out, and then everyone formally agree.
So Kyle Jones, I've been with the Sheriff's Office for just over 5 years. Became a patrol sergeant at the start of 2023, overseeing the self-contract area of Center City, Schaefer, and Taylor's Falls. I work 2 p.m. to 2 a.m. shift, and have one deputy, another Kyle, ironically, Kyle Duncan, that you guys probably see here a significant amount of the time, specifically Mondays, Tuesdays, with some more daytime hours. I've met most of you, if not all, and there's a few unfamiliar faces, but I am around and available. I know that Mary has my number and a card here at the office. I stop in as I can, and sometimes the less you see me, the better. But I'm always there if you need something. I meet with Troy occasionally and try to kind of bridge the gaps so that I'm not having to bother everyone. So
If you ever need anything, just let me know.
All right, thank you. So we're here to talk about the 2024 Law Enforcement Services Contract. And I know that you have some new members on the board, council members, so just a little bit of a history about the Law Enforcement Services Contract. Since I and my administration have taken office, the contract has been basically a one-year contract from year to year. Starts in January and runs to the end of December. And we have 6 contract cities in the county that we provide law enforcement services to, that being your city as well as Schaefer Center City, Stacy, Harris, and Rush City. Past administration did do a 2-year contract, however, we felt a 1-year contract was better. We're not in the business of making money off of these contracts. Basically, we're looking to cover our expenses and costs, and we're able to do that better with a 1-year contract. An example of that might be we started a new program utilizing county public highways fuel. Instead of purchasing at gas stations, buying in bulk with them, different things like that. So we saw savings, so we can pass that along to our contract cities as well in our formula for how we come up with our contract rate. So it is a yearly contract rate. Basically, we're using our costs. We break it down. We can talk quite at length in reference to the contract rate. I can tell you that the new contract rate is $69.17 an hour for next year, and I can tell you that's a 7.9 increase from what you're paying this year. And the reason I can tell you the bulk of the reason why that contract rate did go up is due to the fact that the county did a formal wage study with every position within the whole county. And with that wage study, our deputy wages did go up, and they did sign a new contract for 3 years moving forward from this point, and we do know what those increases will be for the next 2 years after this, and I can tell you it's a minimum of 5.5% just in the wages for that, so that does affect the contract rate. So basically, back in May, I did send a letter to the city advising what the new contract rate was, and I like to do that early in the year as soon as we have that number so that the city can then, through their budget process, know what those expenses might be as they look forward to this contract. And then in June, I did drop off the new contract for 2024, and basically the only difference between the 2023 and the 2024 contract is the term dates, being the new dates of the contract, and then the updated contract rate, and that is basically it. It calls for an average of 40 hours per week for 2,080 hours over the course of the year. We do a couple different little bit specialized stuff with the schedule and the hours. We try to put more hours in during the summer months when your city is seeing more people in it and so forth like that. And we appreciate the partnership that we've had to this point. I can tell you that I've been speaking with the other city councils that we have contracts with, and one thing I have been passing along to those city council members when I speak is that the sheriffs and the Minnesota Sheriff Association, along with the police chiefs this past legislative session, we did spend some time at the Capitol legislating for some public safety money. And I can tell you at the end of the session there was a significant amount of money that was pointed at public safety. And they ended up basically breaking it down to each city based on population. And so I don't know if you're aware, but what I've been told is the city of Taylor's Falls will be receiving $46,691. And that I know that the county and the cities, I believe, will be receiving those funds in late December. So if the council would so wish to utilize some of those funds at this contract, increase hours, different things like that, that would be up to how you want to spend that money. But we are fortunate that we were able to get some different public safety money to make a difference with public safety. So I don't know if there's any specific questions you have in reference to the contract.
Sure. I have none. I appreciate appreciate the communication with both the sheriff and Sergeant Jones, and their assistance and everything, and I think it went well. We've already discussed it at our budget workshops, pretty much agreed to the amount. I'd take the opportunity to appreciate, I want to let you know how much I appreciate everything you guys are doing for us. It's kind of a challenging city. I'm sure a lot of cities are challenging, but it has its own challenges, and I appreciate every time I see you going through the neighborhood or park downtown. It's good to, and I know a lot of our businesses do appreciate when you stop in and make that contact, so.
No, everything seems to be pretty straightforward. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for taking care of us here.
You answered both of my questions in your presentation, so thank you. One thing I was going to ask, on our city website, we have a section under police, and I'm just wondering if we can post the quarterly newsletters on there. They kind of get buried in our minutes. I think it'd be of interest to the citizens to have a quick link to those. They're short, concise, and then there's the stats too that I think are really interesting. At least I do.
Yeah, I think that stat should be posted as well.
Yeah. So if you're amenable to that, if those are the kind of things that are public, well, they're in our packet, so they are public. So just so you know, they
Yeah.
will be.
The various councils utilize the quarterly reports and different things in different ways, whether they post them at City Hall, put it on their sites and whatever, so it is your information to
Just Michelle, we'll work with Becky to make sure that we get that posted. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your service.
So I guess, I mean, we are looking towards next year, but we're looking at some different ways of, I mean, we're always looking at stats, different things like that, and we're continuing to work on that. I mean, I can tell you that we did run some stats just of recent, looking at your calls for service, the time of day that we're receiving them, different things like that, as we look towards providing service for next year. I can tell you that we are seeing some changes with our other contract cities. We have two other cities that are increasing hours, different things like that. So we're trying to figure out how operationally that's going to fit into the mix. So I don't know if there'd be possibly a change looking at the statistics and different things like that. Maybe we reach out to you, see if there's something different that you would like, or maybe possibly we propose some different type of things to you as well. So just wanted you to make you aware of that.
Do you see anything that we should be considering at this point?
No, I mean, we looked at, let's say, the amount of calls, for service, I mean, on average, and when we've talked before, we've talked about, we have calls for service, we have self-initiated type things that are occurring, which turn out to be incidents which are documented. So, I mean, we looked at the calls for service that you have on a daily basis. We looked at what we call the self-initiated calls that are utilized, and then the calls for during the day. One thing with your schedule, we do have some daytime hours, we have some nighttime hours, which is good for the amount of hours that you do get. And then obviously with the amount of tourism the city sees and different things like that, trying to put more hours during those summer months is obviously I think very good as well. So from talking with my staff, I guess we don't really see anything real dynamic that would need to be changed, or it does fall onto the cities. I talked to each of the cities. It is they're like, well, Sheriff, how many, do we need more hours? Are we doing enough, different things like that? And we did put more of a detailed presentation together for the city of Stacy, who is going through an annexation and making some very significant changes. So we did do some more work dealing with some of those questions, because there was a lot of unknowns that they didn't know. But we ran some of those numbers against Taylor Falls. We think we're doing okay. However, if the city would like to, it's kind of up to the city on how much visibility they want, different things like that. But I can tell you from looking at the stats and talking with staff, I mean, the schedule that we have, the amount of hours based on your calls, we think we're just, we're fine. However, if the city would want to take a step up, they always could do that. One thing I have been talking about, the public safety funds, is those are your funds. If some cities are choosing to use those funds to put more hours into your contracts, I can tell you that there's no deadline to use these funds. You can put them away and as a rainy day bank and be utilized for public safety type of items, different things like that. So the city council has some options to do with what they want to do with those funds, whether it's how they want to do that for public safety.
Thank you.
I noticed that I just have something I wanted to point out. It looks like in the second quarter, the number of arrests went up significantly, 100, 200%. But also, this was for 2022 and 2023, but the number of calls decreases. So I'm just wondering, it might be obvious, but what is it about the second quarter that the arrests jumped so high significantly and the number of calls seem to decrease? Is it just the weather or?
Well, if we would look back, I look at a lot of these different quarterly reports for a lot of different cities. A lot of times there's not necessarily a rhyme or reason. I can tell you that there's probably not a rhyme or reason in the total number of calls based on arrests. Typically, you could have 6 calls and you could have 6 arrests for those calls. You could have 600 calls and no arrests. So I don't think there's really a correlation there. Unless Kyle has anything specific, it could be that traffic stops turned up, some more arrest type situations, or behavior in general just call for those arrests that kind of spike some of those. The other thing is when you're talking about statistics, typically when we're talking about, if you're talking about 11 arrests versus 6, it's an 83% increase, but those are some fairly small numbers when you're looking at the whole scope of things. If you throw all our arrests in for the whole month throughout the county, different things like that, obviously those percentages shrink up pretty small even when you see some of those increases. So sometimes when I see those increases or decreases, in these quarterly reports, it's like, well, yeah, it's a big increase, but in the scope of the number, it's not as dramatic as we might think. The amount of calls, I guess I don't have any specific correlation. Your calls look like they went down to 21%, but that could, I believe that includes CIFA as well, which is some of the self-initiated calls as well. So you could have things that just aren't being, pulled for calls, different things like that, that maybe aren't that significant.
So I'm just wondering, because I only saw it in the second quarter, I didn't see it in the first quarter, third, fourth, and it was 2 years in a row.
But then if we're seeing that repeat in quarters, which sometimes we see from year to year in those quarters, there could be something that is happening, around the area that for whatever reason we are seeing that.
Okay.
Is that something that, I know we've met in the past with the ed reports and really dove deep when we were separating things. Is there something that's put in place where you would notice and you would reach out and say, we need to have a meeting, we might need to increase hours, or is that you're saying up to us to notice and come to you guys and say we should increase 30 hours?
So I can tell you every year that I start this contract process, I do speak with my staff. We are running numbers, looking at different things like that, more in depth than what you probably are seeing in your quarterly reports, different things like that. We're talking, I can tell you that I have other contracts where I've shown up every year and said, you're not having enough hours. You're actually taking resources from our townships because we're constantly coming into your city to take calls. So we have had that, and I can tell you that if that was the case here, I'd probably be saying that to you tonight. I don't believe that that's the case at this time and point. Our people that are working the contracts, we're speaking with them, what are we seeing, different things like that. I can tell you that if we saw something specifically happening in your city, would I show up and just because there was some type of a rise that just happened to be happening, I wouldn't be coming to you to let you notify that. I would utilize the sheriff's office resources right then and there, and we'd be addressing that problem. That's one of the advantages of the sheriff's office. I mean, we're the largest law enforcement agency within the county. I have a lot of resources, different things like that. So even though when we see different things happening, whether it's injuries to deputies, different things like that, instead of having your specific deputy that might be out the street for however long, I have a deputy that's been out for over a year, we have resources that we can fill in and do different things like that. So we are looking at that stuff. I can tell you that we are trying to figure out, dealing with statistics, some more measurable guidelines that we can utilize, that we can maybe punch those numbers in for all 6 of our cities, and we're trying to hone that in a little bit more, just because the county's growing, the amount of calls, different things like that. So we are looking at that, and maybe that's something you see from us in the future.
Okay. Well, thank you. Any further questions?
All right, thank you, Mayor and council members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Next, new business would be Mike Brady to chat with us about the industrial park development. Hi, Mike.
Good evening.
Nice
Thank
to
you,
see
Mayor,
you.
thank you, council members, staff. I'm really excited to be here. You guys don't know me, so I'll just give you a very brief history of who I am, what I do for work. So I'm a real estate developer out of Minneapolis. I've grown up in Minnesota, and I got my commercial license in '79, and then in the early 2000s, I started developing real estate after my church asked me to help them buy some land that they couldn't afford. And so we, in Corcoran, Hope Community Church, we got under contract 75 acres and then parceled off different parts of it to other entities, and they ended up getting their land and for free and had some money left over. And so I thought, that was really fun. So we went out and started looking for properties, and we took some historic properties in Minneapolis, American Trio Building on 250 Park Avenue South, and the Cream of Wheat Factory on Broadway in Stinson, and turned that into about $50 million worth of condos, and that, it went well except for 2009 and 2010, when I was had half the condos sold on my property. So I had to regroup, no bankruptcies or anything like that. Everybody came out whole. And I started working for a family office in corporate real estate, and worked for them till 2018, and left on good terms there. Decided, and I had an opportunity with a good friend of mine who was a Costa Rican, and started working in Costa Rica for 2 years. And now I've left that with him because things move very slowly and differently there than here, and wanted to get back into this. So I started at Witz Realty. I'm helping them. They didn't have a commercial division. I'm mentoring young men and women in commercial real estate and helping them build their commercial division. And I'm starting up my real estate development company again, and I would love to have your business part be the first part of what I'm doing. So I made, is it okay to give handouts now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize for not having them.
We have to run and get copies. We can, yeah, make sure everybody has a copy.
I got 7.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Cool.
One.
Michelle, do you wanna?
So I, sorry about that.
Okay. We need to get a couple copies, just so, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I've really come to believe in smaller cities, developed in Minneapolis and Corcoran, and my kids live next to where Prince grew up, right next door in North Minneapolis, and they just moved out to Schaefer 2 years ago, and they got 8 pigs now this year. And my grandson and granddaughters live there, and I just really, I guess I kind of say, see the light as far as the opportunities in small towns with what we have going on in our world today. I think that you guys are one of the answers to what's going on. So, and looking at the park, I mean, you put it together something fantastic there. It's difficult as far as maybe the original vision to attract companies that need immediate access to major arteries or whatever the reason is. My concept is a little different. My concept is for smaller industrial condos on the right side as you're coming in on Braden Avenue. They're about 75,000 square feet or so. Those are approximate numbers. And one of the issues with industrial property right now is outdoor storage. No cities want outdoor storage. It doesn't create tax revenue. It looks ugly. So what I'm coming up with there is that you have your industrial condos right along Braden Avenue with an access road on the north side, which is right next to the electrical, what do you call that, electrical?
Substation.
Is it?
Substation.
Substation. Thank you, Tim. And so with an access coming right off of the highway, there was some screening immediately, so it's never going to be seen by anyone, and it really is a great tool for small businesses. You maybe have some issues with smaller businesses in their homes, having junk all over around their garage and kind of outgrowing that. So that's what I'm thinking of as far as your small outdoor storage. And just interrupt me if you have questions along the way too. I appreciate that. There is actually a vision for the whole site, but I want to prove myself before going on to other ideas for your site there. Any questions so far?
So the dark gray versus the light gray highlights. The dark gray would be kind of the front door.
Correct.
And the light gray would be storage.
Yeah, outdoor
Other-
storage.
Is there a roof over the top of that, or just wide open?
The outdoor storage? No, there is no.
Just nothing, just wide
Yep.
open?
I also really believe in private property ownership. I've been talking with Nancy Hoffman and coming up with some ideas with her as well. Just private property ownership is really critical to what's going on in society today too. So we have a plan to do lease to own, or purchase outright. I've got all the spreadsheets on that I would be happy to share with any of you. I want to be as transparent as possible. We have a fixed profit margin, and so I would love to do that. What it would take for me is I would need a 6-month exclusive right to develop. So in March of 2024, that would expire. And during that time, I would assemble the tenants and begin building next spring. I would start a division here actually. My son-in-law is an architect, a little hog farmer, and he lives in Schaefer. He works at 10K Architects in Hopkins, and I'd love to, in my development company, have him be a partner and start working out of this location. So we would be the first, and then we have some other folks that are we've gotten to know some folks here too, as far as the people buying the Chisago house. We're helping them work at finding some tenants on your end of your street. The couple acres there that my son-in-law, I was really trying to get him to get involved and come up. He has some great ideas for that site, but he's just too busy. So today I made a call to the best boutique hotel developer that I know, and we'll be talking to him this week, and even if I'm not involved, I think it'd be something that you guys will really appreciate. He's very competent and financially has good financial wherewithal. Yeah.
So does the outdoor storage go along with the condo, or are those?
Yes.
separate? Okay.
Mm-hmm. That lot line goes straight.
And we've spoke a few times, and we've actually had an opportunity to sit down and have a couple hours, but, as far as some of the tenants, possible tenants, do you wanna share, like, what that might look like?
Sure, we've got, now we have, two butchers, they're kind of smaller, one has an FDA-approved site that he's working out of, and he wants, more of a little retail operation. And actually the owners now of the Chisago House, they butcher 700 wild game a year. He's just the busiest guy I've ever seen in my life, but they need a location here. We're talking to auto service and then other types of services that would go along with small business. The other thing that's flexible and exciting about this design that I didn't mention is if you had just an office, you didn't need outdoor storage, that it's easy to divide the property right in the middle so that access can come for just an industrial outdoor storage user from the electrical substation area, or just right off the road to just an office if you're an attorney or small business accountant or something like that. I did make one call to one of my investor clients, and he's happy to give you a letter saying that he's in, so.
And you mentioned some spreadsheets that you had with the
Yeah.
figures on them. I guess I think the council would like to have copies of those, or if you
Okay.
can- however you can submit them, that would be great.
I could hand these out now, but then I need to just make a few changes if it's going to be, there's a little proprietary information which I'm happy to share with you, but maybe not just have it out there.
Sure, we can wait until those changes are.
Okay.
That's fine. So you can email them to us, I think.
We'll do, Troy, I'll get that to you tomorrow.
That would be great.
As far as the 6-month exclusive rights, how quickly are you looking to move if council wanted to go this direction?
Well, what we could do is we could have a check-in and with some milestones set up, like at 3 months, and say, hey, you need to have commitments for so much. You know, just like, for instance, in condo financing, on rehabbing historic buildings, what we did there was working with the banks. It would be similar. They gave us the initial control, and then after a certain amount of time, we had to have so many condos reserved. So I'd be happy to, I'm pretty confident we can get something going quickly, so.
Lee, you have any questions?
No, I think it all sounds good.
Tim?
I assume someone could purchase more than one unit.
Yeah, that's the approximation that I mentioned there, Tim, is that, because not everybody needs 3,600 feet exactly, right? So, yes, it would be very flexible.
Build to suit kind of out of the gate.
What's that?
Wanted 5,000 square feet, you'd build it 5,000 square feet.
Yep. And it's easy, you know, when it's paper.
Right.
Mhm.
I wanna see the numbers,
Yeah.
the financials before I were to make any decision. I'm excited though, I mean, I wouldn't have asked you to come up if I wasn't excited.
Yeah,
So,
no, I would
But,
not.
I'd like to see all that before we would sit down as a council. I think it's important for us to see those.
Yeah. What's important to you in that package? Financial wherewithal, other than that?
I guess, I mean, yeah, but I wanna see, like, maybe who you have interested in so far, a letter of intent from them, just so we, I mean, know what we're looking at, just as far as businesses coming in.
Okay, I have not been marketing heavily, I've been mostly cogitating, so I haven't kicked that in yet.
Okay.
Do you have, any criteria on what could be located here? Like, are there things that you wouldn't allow?
Yeah, yes, there are things that we wouldn't allow, you know, any kind of pornographic, any kind of probably marijuana related issue, users, even producers, whatever we could legally control in that way. So it's mostly the social things, but the goal is to have a synergy of small businesses. And so whatever would fit that. It has a lot to do with the marketing, as if you put something out on the commercial MLS, various websites, it doesn't do that much. It takes initiative to go and pursue an avenue. So we would be pursuing small businesses of various and sundry types.
That does raise a question for me, I guess, how much, hypothetically, how much role or voice does the city have as these people come forward and they say they're interested?
We should set that up front. I'm not very interested in fighting City Hall. I mean, I think we're probably similarly aligned on what you want to see. You want to see jobs and tax base and whatnot, so.
Okay. And then you mentioned there'd be, have a certain number of condos reserved, you know, or people who are interested before a certain date. Is that the March date you were talking about, or how would that work?
Yeah, I'm open to discussing that too. I think when you go and discuss, if you're willing to commit to giving me control, that you're gonna have some parameters that you wanna come up with. I'm happy to chat with you about those, but I think you're gonna wanna do that.
So Troy, I think one thing that can help clarify your question, it was a good one. The exclusive rights for him to develop the site goes through March of next year.
Okay.
At some point, we could say, you know, after January 1st, if you don't have 50% commitment, we're done. We could say that as part of the exclusivity agreement, correct? And we could, I assume, also write in any restrictions that we could agree that we're amenable.
I'm with you on that.
So, it's a contract, right, for this?
Developer agreement, yeah.
Right. We'd also want to make sure that Elizabeth is involved with us through this process. And I know, I've seen one email so far, but just figuring out what we can do up there right now, I think.
Remind me how this is zoned.
Industrial, right? Commercial. That's from everything we've been able to find, document-wise, it's a zoned industrial.
Yeah, so I'm the zoning administrator who's emailing with you a little further.
Yeah.
So, nice to meet you.
Yeah, me too, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Well, I think,
I was just gonna say one more thing. I think from a communication perspective, we just have to make sure that we clearly stating this isn't just another storage facility. Cause I hear from a lot of people, we just don't wanna see that. There's enough of that around. We want this to be something like you had mentioned, job generating, growth generating, tax base.
And unseeable by the
If it's
general
built
public.
nice, I love buildings, so.
It's hard to control outdoor storage, the looks of it. Like if you have an auto service, I don't think you have an auto service center in Taylor's Falls, do you?
No.
And so that would be someone that I would want to attract for the city, and they're gonna have cars outside. But in this scenario and design, nobody would see them.
Any other questions? Troy, Lee? No? I think as soon as we get the financial information from you, we'll discuss on our next meeting. When Larry's back with us, he'll have full council, and we can look at that and then make our decision. regarding
Get on
this.
it.
Okay.
I really appreciate you.
One other question, do you have a draft agreement that you've started, development?
I have
agreement?
other developer agreements, and I'm happy to do that and submit that.
That'd be helpful, just to get something in front of us to start just looking over.
Sure. Do you want me to come up with something? Or do you have anything?
I'd much rather you can.
Yeah, I'm a little cheaper an hour too.
But it's, you know, there are all kinds of templates, but you probably have a better idea where you want to start and the direction you want to go. So it'd be better to have at least some of the substantive stuff come from you.
Good point.
So, you know, I can certainly, and I will probably certainly
All right.
be dealing with you on it.
Thank you.
And Mike, if you just wanna make an appointment with me and we can go over the zoning district, what the allowed uses are in that
Okay.
district.
Great.
And just to clarify too, this is only for the east half of the three parcels that are on the east side.
Well, I would like to be so successful that you want me to develop the rest of it.
But the exclusivity agreement that you're talking about is only for what you've shown here.
I would like exclusivity on the entire property,
Oh,
because
okay.
what happens is when you build something successful, then all of a sudden the property around it becomes more valuable.
Okay.
And I would like to carry on, but I'm very open to having to prove myself to be able to do that.
I'm not against that, I think it just needs to be clear in the
Yeah, thank you.
tonight's conversation and the development agreement as well.
Okay. Well, thanks, Mike. Appreciate your time. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you
up.
all.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
All right. Our next, agenda number 3 would be, the Peter Sandsted and Larry Unger, the minor subdivision. How are you? Good to see you again.
Yes.
I guess it's page 53 in our packet if you guys are looking for it. This is a small, it's a shed, 4 feet, right? Property line needs to be 4 feet, so you can build a shed.
Right, just a little adjustment.
Elizabeth, I'll let you give us the report. I mean, planning commission met.
Yep, so Mr. Stansted's proposing to purchase about 4.72 feet from its adjacent neighbor at 358 Briar Lane. He's at 356 Briar Lane. The request is so that he can put a shed up is what's initiating it. He would like that at a specific location. In order to meet the 10-foot side lot line setback, he has to move the lot line. His neighbor has so kindly agreed to move the lot line. You can see the proposal on the attachments. The part that's being transferred is labeled parcel A1. The subdivision meets all the subdivision requirements. There's a 12,000 square foot minimum square feet area for new lots. It meets that, and there's over 100 feet of frontage on each lot. The certificate of survey was submitted and attached. That will have to be recorded at the recorder's office. Planning Commission recommended approval along with staff for the following conditions. Any future development of the subject properties shall be in accordance with the city zoning and subdivision ordinances. 2, the applicant shall provide the city with a recorded copy of the certificate of survey. I've already received it, but not recorded. So me and the title company will go record that together. Number 3, the applicant is not required to pay fees in lieu of parkland dedication as no new lots or dwellings are proposed. This is just a minor adjustment to the lot line. Number 4, all requirements by the title company are met. And number 5, the certificate of survey and city resolution must be recorded at the Chisago County Recorder's Office at the expense of the applicant. I've described how all of the requirements are met in the memo. If you have any questions on those, go ahead and ask.
Ready for comment?
Yeah.
It looks as though this is the property line that should have been put originally. When I looked at this, it looks perfect to me.
It's how the property actually has been used, so it's actually now going to match actual usage, bringing a non-compliant piece of property compliant.
Troy, any comments, questions?
Just kind of looking things over right now.
Lee? No. I have to say, it was nice seeing the neighbors get along and everything went smooth. It was really nice. So, it is.
It's been awesome, they really have. It's been a good experience all around.
Any other questions or comments?
No, thank you, thank you for your cooperation with your neighbors. I'd like to thank the zoning administrator for laying this out. I did go through this last night, and all the boxes have been checked, which is beneficial not only for the resident, but for the city and for the council as well. It looks very straightforward, and I do appreciate you showing up at the planning and zoning commission meeting too. It's nice to see you there.
All right, well, we need a motion and a second to approve minor subdivision.
Yep, I have a resolution described for it with a resolution number for you guys to approve if it looks good to you.
So I would like to make a motion that resolution 2023-09-00, approving a minor subdivision for Peter Sandstead, be approved.
I will second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Very good, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Nice job. Yeah, very nice.
That went quick up here.
We had a long discussion earlier about.
We did have a long discussion.
Number 5, or actually, number 4 and 5, we'll start with 4, but welcome. This will be for the conditional use permit, cannabinoid product retail establishment at 366 Bench Street. Hello,
Hello,
how are you?
I'm doing well. How is everyone doing?
Very well, thanks. We'll start with our staff report.
Yep, as Brandon stated, Buck is applying for a conditional use permit for a cannabinoid product retail establishment, which is allowed as a conditional use in the downtown commercial zoning district. No public comment was received for this, and all property owners within 300 feet of the property were notified prior to the public hearing, which was held on September 5th. And this holds true for the previous property as well, and the properties moving forward. We did them all at the same time. All of the conditional use requirements are met for this. I'd be happy to go through any of them if you'd like me to read through them. I'd like to highlight a few. The proposed conditional use permit permit is consistent with the comprehensive plan and development policies for the city. Comprehensive plan encourages new and local businesses to locate along Bench Street in downtown Taylor's Falls. Diversity of businesses is in the downtown area is also a comprehensive plan goal, which this would be a step towards achieving a mix of uses. The use, in the opinion of the city, is reasonably related to the overall needs of the city and to the existing land use to facilitate a safe place for the purchase of cannabinoid products within Taylor's Falls and potentially raise tax revenue. The use is consistent with the purpose of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. Downtown Taylor's Falls is intended to have most of the city's commercial businesses, and the retail use will add to the mix of businesses in downtown Taylor's Falls. The use will not cause traffic hazard or congestion out of character with the area being a commercial center for the city. Any traffic generated by this business is not anticipated to be different from any other permitted retail uses. There are no new structures or alterations proposed at this time. The proposal meets all the conditional use permit requirements described below. If you want me to go through any of those in detail, please let me know. On September 5th, the Planning Commission approved the conditional use permit, or they recommended approval with the added conditions in addition to the staff recommendation, limiting hours of operation and stipulating that any change to the owner, property owner, or business name will require a new conditional use permit. With that said, staff and Planning Commission recommend approval of the conditional use permit using the findings of facts in this staff report with the following conditions. 1, the applicant will adhere to the applicable requirements for conditional use permits found in section 1000.008 in the zoning ordinance. Number 2, the applicant shall be required to get a cannabinoid product retail license prior to selling cannabinoid products. Number 3, this conditional use permit shall expire upon change of business name, change of business owner, or change of property owner. 4, the hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And the license is to follow. Do you have any questions for me?
I just have something. When I was reading through this, the use of shall be and will be, I'm sure this is a discussion that comes up from time to time, but, and I was here for the zoning and planning and zoning, and Buck was here. It was a great conversation. We had a lot of people there. And I'm just wondering about that word usage, the difference between shall be and will be, because I see you have the applicant will adhere to applicable requirements.
What section, what number?
This would be the recommendation and conditions of approval. Staff and Planning Commission, this is page 73. It's a small thing.
And where? Which number?
Well, like on number 1, we have the applicant will adhere to applicable requirements.
Oh.
Number 2, we have the applicant shall be required. What's the difference between those two? I mean,
Fred?
the applicant will be required? Oh, I didn't know this was a legal issue. I just thought it was interesting.
Here he did draft this one.
Okay.
If you're mandating it, you should use the word shall.
Okay.
Okay, so we made, we shall change it to shall?
We believe that shall.
I would suggest that you change it to shall.
All right.
Okay, that was just almost nothing.
No, that's okay. So, you know, we're flying through these pretty quick, so if you find those details, just make sure when you are approving that, you use that word so we can, so that's what we can put in the record.
I was just curious about Troy, were you done? I'm sorry.
Yes, I am.
I was just curious about 2 things. The hours of operation. Do other businesses have, I realize this is a conditional use, other businesses may not be under a CUP, but is it normal in the downtown to have hours of operation specified? or required by council or by ordinance?
I'd have to look at the history and see what conditional use permits were issued in the downtown area. But I'd say across the board, since I have only been here for a short period of time, the hours of operation are usually put on to a business if, due to a certain concern after a certain time, usually like noise. Planning commission, trying to remember, I don't think they put like a solid reason.
They had mentioned something about like not being open 24 hours a day was something to avoid, or not being open when no one else is open downtown, I think was some of the idea.
We did speak, well, it was brought up to compare it to alcohol sales,
Yeah.
and that's where they got it from. So we looked, and saw that like municipals are 8 to 10, or they can be municipal liquor stores. If we put the stores we saw, was the typical hours.
It's a broader range of hours than what you're proposing anyway, under your license. But I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't gonna be in any way, shape, or form onerous to a business such as yourself.
I can't see it being, yeah, because right now we're planning more like 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., so that would kind of fit within that. And having those extended hours would be nice if there's something going on where there's people around town or some reason to be open later or earlier, but yeah, I can't see that being a problem.
And then the other question I had, is it normal when a building is sold to tie a conditional use permit to a lessee? If the building is sold, Buck has to come back and go through this whole process again. That's the way I read it. I get it if you sell your business or business changes in some way, shape, or form, but if the building owner sells, that would require Buck to come back here and redo this whole process, and that seems a little unfair.
Sure, you can remove the owner from there if you guys wish. Yep, I would say it's more important for a business change. So if Buck was changing his business in any way, he could reapply, or if somebody, he went out of business and somebody else wanted to come in, even with the same business use, the city may want the opportunity to address concerns tailored to his business, the new guy.
Those were the only two questions I had.
I think, so on number 3, under the recommended date changes, do we want to change that, so property owner? Do we want to strike property owner then? And just have it say change of business owner or change of business name? Is that what we're saying?
Well, that was kind of a question Tim had, I don't know if it was a suggestion or not. I kind of like it just the way it is. Things change, and I think it could not only turn out to be an opportunity for you, but for us as well, if there's a change in ownership. So, I think it's a great opportunity. I don't see it as a restriction, I guess, and from your reaction, it doesn't look like you feel that it's a restriction.
I didn't think about it until it got brought up, but yeah, I could see the only thing would be me having to shut down my business again if I have to reapply and come through city council and take all those steps. That would be the only thing that would kind of be a hiccup, I feel like, so. Which wouldn't be fun to have to shut down if it was, middle of the summer or the fall time, like any time of the year, really, it would just kind of be.
Chris, would that be an example of when we could do an interim permit?
Well, arguably, but I think this is an unusual set of circumstances. Normally, when you have a conditional use, it runs with the land. It's not supposed to necessarily matter who the owner is or anything like that. This is a very new kind of facility. It is a conditional use. You have every right to try to not control the use, but you have every right to keep an eye on it, so to speak. And it's not at all hard to visualize, given the way industry is in our great country, that what is now a very nice local business will become a franchised McDonald's, whatever. And, you know, if there wasn't this kind of language, and that, one could argue, would change the character of what it is that you're trying to do, especially a city, you know, like Taylor's Falls, that has other things to consider, you know, in terms of how it looks and how things fit in. And so there's a reason here in my mind. I thought that was fine. It is unusual, you know, I noticed it, but, you know, there's a reason here why you might want to do that, at least initially. Maybe the time will come when it's being reviewed and you think, oh, we don't need to worry about that anymore. But this actually strikes me as a pretty good idea for you, for that reason. Not that anybody's trying to do anything to really kind of control the business, but let's say there is a name change, or there's a culture change, or there's something else that might create a situation in the business district which might have a harmful impact on other businesses in that district. So as it's set up, especially if the owner's not objecting to it and understands the reason is not to cause trouble, but to try to keep things pretty much as they are while you keep an eye on it, that makes sense. I don't know if that helps, but I mean, it is unusual, and you were right to point it out, but it's.
I can see the building owner
Right.
being supportive of it. It just seems like we're reaching in a little further than a tenant,
It's more than usual.
landlord-tenant agreement.
Yeah, no, I would have to say that it is more than usual.
And there's an annual license renewal attached to it, so it just seemed to me it was a little overbearing, and we have an annual opportunity to reject a license if things such as what you had mentioned occur. But that's just some thoughts I had.
Lee?
Yeah, I feel he shouldn't have to go through another permit process if he's still gonna be there, but the building gets sold. You know, he's still there. So.
Fritz, as far as language goes, as a council or a city, we could go back and address this type of language in the future, we're
Right.
saying, if we wanted to change it without going through this process again.
Right, you can amend it, usually when you have a conditional use permit, and of course, this city does all the right things in that regard. Every year, you actually should review, or every couple of years, you should review these things, the conditions, and if there's a need to change or adjust, then that's the time you have a conversation. And it doesn't at all have to be confrontational. It's one of those things where you may decide as a city, look, this is too much of a hassle for us to monitor this. You've got a 5-year track record here. We don't really feel a need or something like that. You can modify it.
I guess I'd like, at this point, since we're moving forward, I would be in favor of just leaving it the way it is at this point, with the opportunity to look at it in the future. And I think this is where your interaction with us, Buck, going forward is important. And I know you've done that, and I think that's important, because I've seen you here a couple times, you know, and I think that's, communication is key. And as long as there's a trusting relationship, you know, I don't see where it's gonna be a problem.
Any other comments? Tim, anything else?
Nope, that's all I had.
Okay, we need a motion and a second to approve the conditional use permit for Buck Duncan for 366 Bench Street.
I've got a couple of questions on here. Can we discuss those, like, let's do the motion and second, and I'll bring them up later, because they're not. Yes, I will make the motion to approve it, conditional use permit.
Second.
Okay, any?
Yeah, I read your letter, your personal letter, that you put in here, if you don't mind. I just thought it was it was interesting and fascinating. Both of your parents ended up working at Hazelton.
Yeah, my mom still is
Still
there
there,
in the
okay.
detox area, yeah, in
Right.
Asia, yeah.
And never at any time were they Were they involved in treatment or helping people that have an addiction to cannabis?
No, in fact, yeah, my father, after quit working at Hazelden, had done interventions all over the country, the world and stuff for all kinds of different people. And yeah, in his time at that, I mean, he had never had that. He had other bizarre, like he had someone that was addicted to video games actually, and there's treatment centers set up for people to go to that and stuff. But yeah, he had never had like cannabis as a single use intervention thing in his whole time there.
Does Hazelton have a program right now specifically for that, for cannabis?
Not really, they're different. People go in there that are using cannabis and abusing it 100%, and but they typically, that's one of the many items on their kind of plate that they're abusing.
Yeah, they don't have a separate program.
They do not, no, they do have a separate program for nicotine addiction, I know that, but yeah.
And then about your license, your USDA in 2022 and currently hold active licensure in 2023, and each year you're required to comply. So this is, if I understand this right, your crops need to fall below 3% threshold for THC, is that correct?
0.3%.
0.3, okay, I took that down wrong. Well, 0.3%. Okay.
Yep, and I've actually got tested on I believe it was the 21st of August, and I passed again this year, so this is my 6th year in a row now that I've passed all my compliance testing with them.
Okay, and if we went over that 0.3%, is that when we're in a different?
Yeah, what they require you to do at that point is you have to do a crop remediation. You can request a second testing, which you're not gonna pass if you test the second time, because if you fail the first time, you're not gonna pass again. And then you're required to destroy your entire crop. You plow it under, burn it, wood chip it, and that has to be monitored by an agent while you're doing that, so they can make sure you're not taking things off the property, trying to be sneaky, hide anything or anything like that. And yeah, I also have to report, everything gets reported to the county where I grow everything in. I have to supply GPS coordinates in my field. I also register with the local farm service agency. And then I have to do multiple reportings throughout the year with that. I have to do a planting report with the FSA, harvest report. They have to get all my testing done. And then I have an annual report at the end of the year that I have to comply with.
And what time of the year is it? Is it always August or?
Yeah, the testing is, you determine it by your harvest dates. So you're required to do it 30 days before you harvest, in some window in there. So depending on when you're harvesting, but it's typically around the end of August, beginning of September, that I have. For people who do year-round or indoor growing, then they're doing it at all kinds of times throughout the year.
Okay. And they would require, if you were over that 0.3%, to just basically destroy the crop?
Yes, everything has to be destroyed and monitored, but like I said, there's someone there. And it depends somewhat on the level you go over, because if you go over too far, they consider you negligent, and then you can actually revoke your license and do all kinds of things with it. Or if you test over, just a little bit over for like 3 to 5 years in a row, they can also do some things with your licensing.
And that's your license to grow?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And then the other thing you said in here is, that being, I take responsibility for ensuring age compliant distribution very seriously, and I believe you.
Yes.
I enforce the carding or request a photo ID with birth date for all customers that appear to be under the age of 40 years old.
Yes.
Would you card me if I came in?
Maybe to make you feel good.
How about the attorney?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Double proof of ID.
Okay, no, that was it. I just wanted to share some of the things I read from that legal letters. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Nope.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote for the CUP here, 366 Bench Street for Buck Duncan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll move right along here to now, welcome again.
Yeah, just stand up, turn around.
This is for the cannabinoid product retail license application for Buck Duncan at the same address, 366 Bench Street. So we have the CUP. That's approved. It looks like we have a copy of his application in here, along with the background check form. Elizabeth, anything to catch us up on that?
And then
Oh, I
we
see
have a
it.
certificate of liability insurance as well. He's completed that. The background check is still in progress. He has submitted it. There's no problems. It's just we haven't finished the process yet. So I don't know if you would like to go ahead and approve it. I want to note that he does have a federal background check that he has passed. So, I don't,
But our motion would have to be contingent upon, since we don't have the results, it would need to be contingent upon successful background check.
right,
Which
or
we've done
maybe Fritz,
before.
when can he open, or can he, is there a way we could, so we're not holding him back? Do you want to wait till the background check is fully done, provided he has the federal one? Yes, solid yes.
Well, I mean, yeah, the answer is yes. I don't know, do you do it through the sheriff?
I believe so.
Yeah, I shouldn't take that long.
Yeah, I turned it in on the 18th of August, so it's been almost a month.
Like I said, that takes a while sometimes.
Yeah,
I would have
I
expected
did.
it to have been done by now, quite frankly.
Yeah, same, and I, like Elizabeth said, I do have to get a FBI federal background check to have my license
Sure.
through the USDA. I have to submit all 10 fingerprints, and yeah, it's a whole process, but. And that's a nationwide check, so it's not just for Minnesota, it's for all 50 states.
Yeah, you'll have to
If you
check.
want to
with-
approve it conditionally pending, I suppose you could, given the fact that you could rely on a federal check, but understand that if you do that for him, you're gonna have to do that for anybody else that comes in and asks.
Sure.
Not that you're not special, but.
Yeah, but you'll have
That's
to,
one thing you have to be
you'll have to check with
mindful of.
Mary on where exactly that is.
So we have the federal, we're waiting on the county. Is that correct?
State, so,
Yeah.
Or the state?
Well, that's.
Well,
basically.
This is through the BCA, right? We're-
That's
wait, so
what we have.
whatever we put in our ordinance,
Yep.
just
So
following
we
that
are
procedure, and
employees.
Mary's familiar with that procedure, so she's taken that.
Yeah, to say the state one is redundant is an exaggeration, but it is one of our requirements, and we've made hires conditional upon a background check. I'm not sure if we've done anything else conditionally, but I know we have with hires.
I would say we can vote it on conditions that we get the background check back.
What's the difference between that and pending approval? We just, it's not approved.
He wouldn't have to come back here in front of us if the background check comes back with no issues.
Right, so if we got it later this week, say, we could just allow him to open. Or if he's already open for the beverages.
Yeah, otherwise it'd be another 2 weeks at least.
Yep, our next meeting is the 25th, so.
Yeah.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah.
Are we done with discussion?
Yep.
I would make a motion that we approve the cannabinoid retail license for Buck contingent upon staff receiving an acceptable background check from the BCA or whatever our normal channels are. And that the license be issued as soon as that's received.
I guess I would change that from acceptable to passing. You know, I get it. You know, he has to pass the background check, not just, you know.
Sure, is
I
it
I guess it's the word
I've never seen a
acceptable.
background check come back, is it pass fail?
Well,
Well-
it'll come back on a letter saying that there was nothing found, or it's gonna come back with sheets of everything that was found.
Okay.
Yeah, there's not a pass fail, it's,
Yeah.
I mean, if he has a federal one, I'm not saying anything, but if he has a federal one, it's gonna come back clean. But we have to do our due diligence here because we're gonna have other people coming for licenses, so. Okay, so contingent on,
Acceptable was the word.
Clean?
So, we could even get, we could get minor infractions, could we not? Or would the federal would pick that up already?
I would think the FBI would pick that up.
in this situation, I guess
Or
they
a lot
uncover
more
every
depth than
pebble.
we see.
Maybe, I mean, sometimes there's a difference, there is, sometimes there's actually a difference in the level of scrutiny, you'd be surprised sometimes. But I'm not terribly concerned in this particular case, I suspect you shouldn't be either, but you have to think about this as a precedent-setting action that you're taking. It's reasonable to say, okay, we understand you have this one last thing to do, but we're not gonna wait to do the approval, we'll do the approval conditioned on this coming back, and the mayor or the clerk or whoever, can affirm that in fact that it's positive, and then you get it. Those kinds of conditions are not unusual, and would not get you into any kind of trouble subsequently.
I guess I'd like affirmation by the mayor and one more council person, at least, and of course the clerk is going to know, but.
No, I can appreciate what you're thinking, as I struggled with that when we were doing hires too. What do you call that? Because it's not a pass fail. I wish it were. I think we should work on that language, because this is gonna come up again at some point.
Yeah, so should we change it to clean, a clean background, or clear black?
Clear.
Background, clear background?
Clear background.
Positive, I would say.
Positive?
Positive background, yeah.
Okay.
Clean.
Or is it
Honest.
negative?
Okay.
No findings.
Or, yeah, how are we going to define it? Yeah, that's a good point.
So contingent on a positive background check, the mayor and clerk and council members will be informed.
It's verified by, normally it'd be the clerk.
Okay. I can assign it anyway at the end, so. All right.
Can you have word on that again?
No.
Approve the Canterbury retail license for block contingent on staff receiving a positive background check.
Yeah, by the mayor, clerk,
Reviewed by,
the council.
validated by the clerk and mayor.
Is that right?
Because it's not coming back here.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's,
we can just send it out. and
no,
email
like I
it.
said, normally I would expect, Mr. Mayor, that it'd be the clerk. That's kind of one of those routine kind of things, it's verified. If you want that additional security, to have the mayor look at it too, fine. You're gonna have to at some point verify, and inform the council that that happened.
Yes, I guess that's what I'm saying, I would like that additional security.
Okay. Good. You get it?
I wrote,
Verbiage?
okay, so I don't have a second either.
No, we're not there yet.
Okay.
We're changing verbiage.
Okay, no, say it again.
Motion to approve Buck's license contingent on a positive background check, notifying council,
So what I originally wrote was approve the Canterbury retail license for Buck contingent on the staff receiving a positive background check validated by the mayor and clerk.
oh, is that good?
Are
Okay.
you allowed to say what she said? And then-
I'm not gonna remember all that.
I'll say it.
She doesn't.
I'll make a motion that we approve the cannabinoid retail license for Buck contingent on staff receiving a positive background check validated by the mayor and clerk.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is Sean and Mary Ann Morley, the conditional use permit for the cabinet manufacturing over at 736 Chisago Street. Nice to see you again. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, this request is to operate a cabinet manufacturing facility at 736 Chisago Street. No public comment was received prior to writing this report. All the property owners within 350 feet were notified prior to the public hearing, which was on September 5th. The property is zoned St. Croix River 2. Prior to the St. Croix River zoning district regulations, the property was zoned industrial. The building at 736 Chisago Street has hosted several manufacturers over the years. Many people may know this location as the former Hey Chicks building. Manufacturing is allowed as a conditional use within the St. Croix 2 district. There is no conditional use on file to apply to the proposed manufacturer, and the manufacturing has been discontinued for over 1 year, approximately 3 to 4 years. The conditional use permit application meets all the general requirements. I just want to highlight a few. One is the expected water and sewer utility usage is for the bathroom for about 6 employees. The manufacturing processes do not require extra water usage. The facility currently has the bathrooms and the floor drain hooked up to the city sewer, which had metal shavings going into the public sewer from a previous manufacturer. The zoning administrator, Elizabeth Haas, has coordinated with the Morleys and the City of Taylor's Falls Public Works Superintendent, Kevin Gruber, to address the floor drain issue to assure no sawdust or other unapproved contents does not enter the city sewer lines. Mary Ann has informed the city that they do not need to use the floor drain and will work with Kevin Gruber to properly block or disconnect the floor drain or otherwise resolve this concern. The manufacturing will The manufacturing will occur within the existing building. For outdoor operations, the main entrances and loading docks are on the west side of the building. Chisago Street and Highway 16 is adjacent to the west side of the parcel. Across the highway, west of the parcel, is a vacant parcel that is primarily wetland. The residences to the east of the parcel, across Hazel Alley, are screened from outdoor operations by the building itself. The south and north side of the parcel are screened by trees. The property owners will also need a dust collector for the cabinet manufacturing facility. The dust collector is currently proposed outside of the building, either on the north or the south side of the building. The Morleys stated that the dust collector can go inside if necessary, but is preferred outside. The dust collector system the owners are currently looking at is 84 decibels at 10 feet from the machine. There's an attachment for the machine available that can bring the noise down another 7 decibels. The Morleys described it as comparable to a shop vac, but with a low hum instead of a high hum.
Doesn't scream.
Good distinction.
But the use in the opinion of the city is reasonably related to the overall needs of the city and to the existing land use. The building is designed for manufacturing use and has a history of different manufacturing uses. The use brings business and potential employment to the city. The use will not cause any traffic hazard or congestion. There's no concerns there. I guess the proposed traffic related to the cabinet manufacturer will consist of their employees going in and to and from work, and deliveries by small box trucks about once per week, and an occasional semi for large deliveries and order pickups. There's room in the driveway and docking area on their property for the trucks to perform their tasks without blocking or congesting the road. They have driveways on both sides. The applicant has been informed to contact the zoning office before making any changes to the property or structures to see if the zoning permit or building permit is required. The applicant is aware that the conditional use permit must be obtained before the business operations start. Lake Area Custom Cabinetry Incorporated is registered with the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry. There's no signage proposed at this time. Marianne will work with me on any signage in the future. Regarding the lighting, there's one of the neighbors who I don't think is here today. He said he was able to see one of the lights was kind of glaring at his property, and the Morleys have communicated with them on resolving that issue. I've had put in the conditions. I'll read the conditions later. Okay. Let's see. I've attached pictures of the lights if you want to look at them. It's a little hard to evaluate the lighting right now because there's full tree cover, and it's light out till pretty late. So I did suggest to put a condition on there for an inspection in the wintertime when there's leaf off and when it's dark out a little earlier, so I don't have to work till 9 p.m. Okay, Planning Commission recommends approval of the proposed conditional use permit application, including the recommended conditions set by the zoning staff below, and that staff and the applicant work together on light and dust abatement issues. So the zoning staff recommends the city council make a motion to approve the proposed conditional use permit application of the cabinet manufacturing with the following conditions. 1, best efforts and best practices are applied by the applicant when implementing the dust collector system to minimize noise nuisances to the neighbors. The dust collector system is subject to an inspection and modifications instructed by the zoning administrator and or city council upon installation to assure there is not an unreasonable nuisance to the neighboring residences. Number 2, the applicant must contact zoning administrator for a site inspection regarding 2000.018 subdivision 1F2I of the Taylor's Falls zoning ordinance, the lighting requirements, to assure there is no glaring direct source of light visible from the adjacent residential areas or from the public streets. The inspection must be performed when there are not leaves on the trees and when it is fairly dark out in the fall or the winter. Number 3, outdoor lighting must be turned off when not in use, with the exception of minimal security lighting to minimize light nuisances to the neighboring residences. Number 4, consult with Public Works Superintendent Kevin Gruber on how to plug or disconnect the floor drain. Call Public Works or zoning administrator with final drain information to keep on record. Number 5, contact the clerk or treasurer for any separate requirements through the city. Number 6, the conditional use permit shall expire, the typo there, upon change of business, change of type of manufacturer, or change of property owner. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Tim, do you have any questions?
Just a couple. Quick. One on the dust collector. I'd hate for you to incur any unnecessary costs in opening and running your business, but is it a significant cost to add that noise
The silencer?
reduction? Yeah.
It is not.
Okay. So, I mean, it decreases at 8%.
I mean,
And we could
it's
install
rather
it.
insignificant. I'd probably
Okay.
just get it.
Okay, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
And then, you mentioned you don't do your own finishing. I assume that's lacquers, stains, that kind of finishing work for
Correct.
woodwork. So if at some point in time you found it advantageous for you to do that, and this is maybe more of a question for Liz, how could we ensure that it was done? Because I assume it'd have to be spray booth or something, and odors can emanate from that. How can we monitor that, or would that have to come back to the council or planning commission for approval if they wanted to add that service or that operation?
Yep, so you want to craft it in your approval. So right now, manufacturing is a fairly broad term.
Good, I've been involved in instances where I've had that kind of work next to clinic, for example, and there were some odor issues.
Absolutely.
I would recommend adding that to the condition if, you know, change in operation, including finishing, would require conditional use permit, renewal or review of conditions. Amendment, yeah.
Okay.
That wouldn't affect drainage. That would make a difference as far as that goes. Okay, so it's still, okay.
I don't like finishing, so.
Okay. That was-
I hope to never have that.
Okay. That's up to us, right?
That was all I had.
Councilmember
Those
Groves.
2 items, yes, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I've got just a couple things. The parcel, or the area across the street, across the highway. I've walked back that road, I don't know if you have done this, but right across the street, there is a structure back there. It's somewhat dilapidated, very dilapidated. But it might be something maybe you want to check into, Liz, or we could check into as far as what the history is on it, because at some point, somebody was there. So I know there's a lot of trees there right now, but that's kind of a walk I do at lunch. I go around that kind of a loop down River Street and around. Something that we should probably look into. I think, you know, we should probably let you know what we find out on it. No signage?
Eventually, yes.
Okay, so it is something you're considering?
Yes.
I was wondering how you went this far without signage. Is it all in that business? You know?
Everything I've done for 18 years has been word of mouth.
Okay.
We've been very blessed in that manner.
And this outdoor lighting must be turned off when not in use. Is that a security issue for you?
It could be, I guess I don't know right now. I don't know fully what it's like up here. I know that there is one light right now, which the neighbor alluded to. We did go up and look at that after last week's meeting and waiting for it to get dark. It's my opinion, I'm not sure what it is that's shining towards him because it is completely covered and down kind of away from his property. That does come at night, on at night. Currently, I don't even know how to shut that off. No switch.
No, I appreciate you working with them on that. That was great to see at the meeting. Just something you might want to consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
With no lighting at all.
Yeah, and I did put in there except for minimal lighting for security.
Okay.
We are looking at or considering putting some screening of trees on the backside and the east side of the lot as well.
And I know at the meeting, the planning and zoning, you mentioned this, but if you would say it again, what are you looking at for potential for employees for hiring?
I think we could easily run at least 10 out of there, potentially more. Hopefully that growth comes.
Rich?
Yeah, please. What is the hours of operation of this? Is there gonna be a second shift, and when, because I can hear a dust collector from 20 miles away, I don't care what the decibel is. Chambers Falls is quiet at night. And is there gonna be a second shift?
I have no plan for one right now. Our current hours.
So hours of operation are gonna be 8 to 4, 8 to 5.
Our current hours are 8 to 4. I'm generally there earlier, but that's not necessarily working in the shop. There are instances where we may have to work overtime or longer hours, but I definitely try to minimize what I can and be alert to everybody around me. Our current shop is, I'm surrounded by neighbors, so I'm very aware and want to be very cognizant of how their interactions are, and I've never had a complaint thus far, so.
I'm good.
I got to hear a bunch of questions last week, so I was at that meeting.
Yeah, I think just to touch base on the hours of operation, I think they decided not to put the hours of, to limit the hours of operation on there for when they get like a large order and they have to work a little longer. And then he had said that all of his neighbors have the phone number, and if they're being too loud, just to let him
Yes.
know. So I think that's kind of how they remedied that.
Yeah, if there's ever an issue, please let me know. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, hours of operation is something you could put on there.
So what about saws and different stuff like that that you guys?
They're all gonna, everything will be in the building.
Okay, just thinking about the things, I mean, noise, I guess, at this point.
The table saws aren't very, they're not that loud. Occasionally the CNC, if that's running for an extended period of time, can be loud.
What's that, CNC?
Computer numerically controlled. It's a 5x10 flatbed machine that does lots of cutting.
Okay.
We just finished a large project that's going out to New York, and that ran 24 hours a day for 3 weeks. You couldn't hear it when I shut the door. That, for that particular project, it did not need it, require a dust collector. It just ran.
I don't think we need to put any time limits on hours of operation right now. If we get that, complaints, we'll work with you guys on it.
And I will add that project, it wasn't supposed to take 24 hours a day. It was just, it was a time crunch. Get it done.
I'll need a motion and a second to approve the CUP for Sean and Mary Ann Morley at 736 Chisago Street. We did have a change that we wanted to put in.
Yeah. So do you want to make the motion first and then we'll talk about those changes?
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the CUP for Sean and Mary Ann Morley at 736 Chisago Street.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, we can discuss the changes.
Under item 5C, number 5, I would like to move the existing number 5 to number 6 and insert a new number 5. The addition of operations related to finishing process will require an amendment to the CUP. And then I'll leave, I think, between zoning and the proprietor to good faith that they'll just install that decibel lowering device initially. So there are now 6 conditions.
That was additions to operations, adding finishing will require a new CUP, right?
An amendment to the CUP. Does that make sense, Elizabeth? Other than that, welcome.
Thank you. Excited to have you. Anything else that we want to change or add? All right. All right, with the addition, the change in the addition that Tim added, we'll need to go ahead and vote. You have everything you need, then, Elizabeth? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
Thanks. Good luck, Sean. Thank you. I'll probably come by. Sounds good.
All right.
Have a good day.
You too, thank you. Number 7, zoning ordinance amendment regarding small accessory buildings is our next item. Elizabeth, I'll let you give us a rundown.
Yep. So staff recommends city council forward a motion in favor of adopting the proposed zoning ordinance amendment exempting certain accessory structures from the quantity of accessory buildings allowed on a property as described in section 2000.012 accessory structures, subdivision 1H of the Taylor's Falls zoning ordinance. So staff's proposing changes of the ordinance regarding how small accessory buildings such as chicken coops, dog houses, and child play sets are intended to be regulated within a reasonable size and in relation to the overall quantity of accessory buildings allowed on the properties. Staff recommends that the city council have a discussion prior to making the motion on the proposed zoning ordinance amendment on what is the intent of regulating the number of buildings on the lot and evaluate if an amendment to the ordinance language is needed to meet that intent. The notification for public hearing related to the proposed zoning ordinance amendment was published on August 24th, 2020 in the Chisago County Press. Staff did not receive any public comment prior to writing this report. A little bit of background, the zoning ordinance regulates the location, size, quantity, use, material, and color of accessory buildings and structures within the city of Taylor's Falls. These specific regulations may vary depending on the zoning district. The proposed changes would apply to all zoning districts except for the downtown commercial district and the rural countryside district, unless otherwise noted, which is consistent with section 2000.012 of the Taylor's Falls zoning ordinance.
Is there,
Yeah. I think I mixed up my pages is all. So you can see the proposal, what I'm actually proposing is, one chicken coop or tractor under,
it's page 137, I feel good.
137.
Yeah.
alright, my apologies. Alright, but the following would be exempt from the ordinance with the exact wording that's in the memo there. So one chicken coop or tractor under 50 square feet where the chicken run does not count towards the overall area of the accessory building. Chicken coops are permitted in small town and residential transitional zoning districts only. Second thing would be exempt 2 dog houses. So in our ordinances, 2 is the number of dogs allowed, so that's why I went with 2, which are accessory to residential use, each under 30 square feet. Kennels must follow the kennel regulations within this ordinance and the city code. Letter C, child playhouse buildings under 64 square feet. I didn't put a number on that. You can evaluate on whether that's needed or not. And D, one accessory building which does not have a foundation under 64 square feet on lots greater than or equal to a half an acre. Letter D is what Planning Commission proposed to just table for another discussion, which I would agree with that recommendation, just because when you're looking at regulating the quantity of buildings on lots, it really depends on the size of the lot, on how cluttered the lot would look. That's one of the reasons cities like to regulate the number, is so people don't have many small accessory buildings on a lot, which may not be so impactful on a larger 5-acre lot per se. So I would agree with Planning Commission's recommendation to table that, but I would just like to clean up the ordinance a little bit to address the small accessory buildings that I don't feel are intended to count towards towards the 2 allowed accessory buildings on the residential lots. Currently, a building is any structure, either temporary or permanent, having a roof and is used or built for the shelter or enclosure of any person, animal, or property of any kind. So that would make dog houses and chicken coops fall under a building. So planning commission recommended approval of staff's recommendation except for letter G. The zoning ordinance amendment falls in line with all the requirements. Do you have any questions for me?
One thing on the summer request, and either this is a typo or I'm reading the wrong one, this would be page 128. About halfway down, you said staff, what's written here, staff recommends the planning commission have a discussion. Was that?
That is a typo.
Okay.
I saw that one right before the meeting too. Sorry about that. Believe it or not, I don't rewrite the report for you guys. Sorry. I just tweak a few little things and I did miss that one.
Too much work.
Thank you for noticing.
And then I think what really struck me about this was page 131, findings of fact. Letter C, the amendment meets the overall needs, so this is letter C on 131.
Yep.
A small accessory building such as chicken coops, dog houses, playhouses, and small storage sheds are very reasonable incidental use of the property. Many properties within the city of Taylor's Falls have one or more of the listed small accessory buildings as at least the third accessory building on the lot, which is currently a violation. Staff feels that it would be unreasonable to have property owners remove all of these small accessory buildings to comply with the existing zoning ordinance as they are. So that's kind of what we're facing here, you know, I mean, that's a lot of work.
Right, and
Right.
I don't feel like it would be right for me to go up to people and tell them they can't have the dog houses.
Cheryl and I took our granddaughter for a walk today, and having this in mind, I was kind of paying special attention. And some of those non-compliant structures that are there today, they've been there 30 years.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like somebody just said, I know there's an ordinance against this, I'm doing it anyway. They've just been there a long, long time.
Yeah, and I think it's 10 years. If it's been there for over 10 years, then zoning can't make them remove it. It's not a non-conforming structure, but if it, you know, they put it up this year, we can make them bring the property into compliance.
Question for you. This is kind of a stretch, but I saw somebody online post, I try not to pay much attention to the posts, but beehives, technically they house bees. So would that be something that would fall under here? Because there
Maybe we
is
should add
question.
it.
I don't wanna add it, I don't wanna make any more rules in the meeting, but,
I mean,
did
you should
you
exempt
see
it.
that, we should probably put in there that there's an exempt for those. I don't believe we need a license or need to worry about people having honeybees.
It's almost like a raised
Yeah.
vegetable garden.
So I did have a question on that, a couple phone calls on whether or not they could have bees. And if you look into the definitions, the bees fall under domestic farm animal, which would then fall under agricultural use. So I'm thinking by default, it's not an allowed use, so it's automatically prohibited. I don't know if that's the intention. I don't know, it was a little fuzzy. What do you think, Fritz?
Thanks. You know, we're talking structures here, right? And I think you're pushing the envelope if you're talking about a beehive, unless they've changed dramatically in size. I don't think that's even really in the ballpark for an auxiliary structure.
So we should.
Sure, well, you just reel us back into what we're supposed to be talking about, and that's the actual structure. But I was talking about the actual use, though,
Right.
is currently not allowed. Oh,
Is there any way that you can make like a animal word? Because I know of one place that has a rabbit hutch.
Sure. No, that's,
yeah, I I would recommend making an appointment to come in and talk to me. We can look at, amending.
Well, no, but I mean, just
that.
for you.
Add something
Instead of saying
after.
doghouse, can you
Yeah.
make a, like a
Oh,
animal
okay.
structure word?
Domestic.
Yeah, you better put that in there, because I just had an elephant come to mind.
Yeah, domestic, yeah, and they broke it down into domestic farm animals and domestic pets are the two categories in our ordinance.
And I know a lot of people that have bees don't keep them over winter here because it's really hard to overwinter bees. I've tried it for 3 days, it's really, so most people, they say like 85% of the honeybees in the country go to California in the winter to pollinate the almond crop and stuff like that, so most people don't even keep them year round, I know.
I have beehives, so we need to figure something out.
So you'll be recusing yourself.
I guess so.
Right, and I think the beekeeping thing is like sort of a new, emerging land use compared to the ordinance whenever it was updated last.
Okay.
So it's just kind of, it's funny because they're addressed in the definition of farm animal, but then it doesn't really say anything beyond that. So I think some clarification,
We'll work on
if you
that.
guys are okay with bees, it would be nice to just come out and say that they're allowed. Or if you're not, then come out and say for sure they're not allowed.
Well, you need them.
Yeah.
That would be a different ordinance.
Yeah, that's
So-
separate from this,
So if
but,
we change this to the structures that would meet,
Animal structure?
yeah, the, what's allowable under, what's allowable under the other ordinance that would allow chickens and rabbits and bees, those structures would be allowed, given the size requirements that we've had here, right? Keep it just the same as the chicken, so domestic and agricultural animals per ordinance,
yeah, domestic farm animals and pets.
domestic farm animals,
Accessory buildings to house domestic farm animals and pets.
allowed by ordinance.
Allowed by ordinance under, well, see, right now you don't have to go into the use
Right.
necessarily, because the use is already covered elsewhere in the ordinance. Right now, you're just kind of calling out the specific structures. So if you feel like dog houses is too specific, or if chicken coop is too specific, you could broaden that to animal housing.
So under B, we want to say 2 animal houses. Domestic animal.
Well,
I just,
okay. Well, right, it sounds like what the zoning administrator is saying is that would already be included. We're talking about small accessory buildings. In fact.
So what's the difference
that
between a
qualifies.
rabbit hutch though and a dog house in their yard?
Right, so I guess she's got a point, if the rabbit house isn't, we're not drafting it to really cover the rabbit house, that would fall under the,
So then it's
the
still.
letter, the D is the catch-all, really. The ABCs are the specific.
So can we prove D contingent upon planning, revising? I mean, sure, we're gonna revise this again, so why don't, so if
I'm
we.
sorry, I interrupted, you were looking at me meaningfully, I thought, you know. you-
No, I was, I still am. I'm always looking at you meaningfully. So we could pass, even though the planning commission wanted to strike D, we could pass that, and that would cover rabbit hutches for the time being.
Well, it
So you're
does
saying
say-
pass it and then reevaluate it later? I mean, that's gonna cover storage sheds and stuff, I mean, you're talking about an 8x8 structure, so do you wanna approve those or not at this time?
So you're talking about overriding the recommendation of the zoning commission, right?
Yeah, and I would recommend, I concur with the planning commission, I think we should address it at a later date. I would maybe lean towards looking at the square feet that are, maybe just, instead of chicken coop, for that one, new animal housing, or.
Boy, it took us down a rabbit hole.
Because that would be specific to like pets and and animals, and not storage sheds, additional storage sheds.
Well, at this point, we can discuss it more, but I'll make a motion to approve this, these exemptions, inclusions as small accessory buildings. I can list them if you would like. I guess I could.
So this is the resolution 2020.
Yeah, let's do it that way. That's the best way to do it. What page is the resolution on?
136.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, I will make a motion to approve resolution 2023-0902, exempting the small accessory buildings such as chicken coop, dog houses, and playhouses, and small storage sheds.
Do you want to remove D?
I'm going to recommend the council, listen to the advice of the planning commission and staff at this point.
So
Stick with the
take
A, B,
D
and
off.
C.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
So we're leaving it chicken coops and not animal?
We're leaving it the
Okay.
same for now, yep.
Yep.
And we're subtracting D. So, all right.
We'll have to amend it soon anyway.
Yeah,
So
we're gonna meet again next month.
I would say start working on some language for B, it would be under B, 3B, right?
Mhm.
Chicken coops are pretty specific.
Yep. Okay. Any other discussion for resolution 2023-09-02?
No.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on, number 8, zoning, cannabinoid product retail license ordinance amendment regarding the definition of cannabinoid product retail establishment.
Yep.
Yep, you're up.
Right. So staff recommends the city council make a motion to redefine cannabinoid product retail establishment within the existing city code, section 311 cannabinoid product retail licensing ordinance. Such text shall clarify which types of businesses shall qualify for a cannabinoid product retail sales license. I recommend to discuss hotels, motels, residences, restaurants, bars, gas stations, and other retail establishments and other businesses, and modify the definition of cannabinoid product retail establishment accordingly. The current ordinance reads cannabinoid product retail establishment reads business. Oh, I'm so sorry guys, it is 9 p.m. It means a business that sells cannabinoid products including incidental sales. Though this definition is intended for retail establishments, staff recommends to clarify that the license is intended for retail establishments specifically and not for hotels, motels, or residences. And this would affect restaurants as well. So in our current ordinance, you're not allowed to consume the CBD products on site. And at a restaurant, if you're selling, say, a beverage and you can't consume it on site, it's kind of contradictory to itself. So it would kind of put out restaurants. So in the proposed text, we've added to that. So it would then read cannabinoid product retail establishment means a business that sells cannabinoid products, including incidental sales, where retail functions as the primary use of the property. Locations where people stay overnight, including hotels, motels, and residences, do not qualify as cannabinoid product retail establishments. And Harriet, from Bolton and Mink, had also pointed out that if you keep it at retail establishments, that also makes it easier to regulate from an enforcement standpoint as well. So that kind of summarizes it, because all of the requirements for the amendment are the same as when we put the licensing ordinance in place so it qualifies. But I just think it should be up for discussion on to really be intentional of who you're allowing to apply for this license. Because planning commission wanted to add that from the start, and just, you know, my mistake, over time, the definition had changed, and we took it from kind of a template definition, and we just kind of forgot to specifically add it in. But one of our very first conversations at planning commission was to make sure that hotels and motels and residences were not able to apply for the license.
Yeah, as I look at it, I'm just wondering if there's a way to make it even a little stronger without, you know, too much change. But right now it reads locations where people stay overnight, including hotels, motels, and residences, do not qualify as cannabinoid product, and that puts it at the end. And I guess there'd be in my opinion, there'd be a stronger emphasis if it were something like locations not qualifying as a cannabinoid product retail establishments are, and then listing them. So let them know right at the beginning, this is a list of establishments that are not qualified, instead of listing the establishments first and then saying you're out at the end.
I would
Does that make
respectfully, I like your wording, like locations not qualifying
Okay,
as,
okay.
but I would respectfully disagree that the first half of the definition does illustrate some importance.
Oh, and I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying if we change it to locations not qualifying as cannabinoid product retail establishments are.
And crossing off locations where people stay overnight.
Right.
But keeping everything
Yes.
before that.
Right, sure,
Okay.
something to that effect. But just flop the emphasis around of the sentence, I guess.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else, Rick?
No.
Lee?
No.
No, I'm good, you answered.
So are you okay with that list then? Hotels, motels, and residences? Do you want to add anything to that? Restaurants, bars? You want to come flat out and say any other type of business?
So I was wondering about restaurants, and when you were talking about restaurants, I thought about bars too. I'm not sure, can a bar sell, I know breweries sell CBD, THC seltzers, for example. It's the non-intoxicating. Would those be prohibited?
As it's currently drafted, it's where it catches it is where retail functions as the primary use of the property. So most restaurants, so when you have a restaurant that has retail in it, because I had the Shoney's owner come to me and inquire about that. Because he says he has some retail there, but it's, what's the primary use? So just kind of looking at those types of businesses, and you guys know the types of businesses that are currently in Taylor's Falls better than I do right now. So just kind of running through, where those businesses would fall within this definition, and if that's what the intent is, to exclude them or not.
I don't foresee it being that heavy.
Bars and restaurants can serve those that you're
Okay.
talking about, yeah.
That's what I thought.
I serve them a lot of.
And they already have a license. Would they require a second license, or second on-sale license for cannabinoid versus alcohol?
I think if they sold them, they would maybe have to get a permit from the city.
Yeah,
So that would fall under the licensing ordinance that we just passed.
I
So
would
which
not
right-
want to preclude a restaurant or a bar. Personally, I wouldn't want to. But I understand the other.
Right.
So the way it's
Because
right
I-
now, they can't. is what you're saying, so we have to.
If they don't have retail, so, and I think that just matches with what you passed in the licensing ordinance of not being able to consume it on site. I would say if you were able to consume it on site, I don't see why you would wanna exclude a restaurant or a bar. But right now you cannot consume it on site.
Good point. Maybe a future discussion then.
Yeah, and we can change it, yeah, the city can really regulate it how we want to, where, where do we want the sales to occur?
I think we leave it the way it is right now, and we can have further discussions.
Yeah, no, I would agree. So it has tentacles.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess I still like my change, or that change, if that could be included.
Yeah, I don't have it.
You don't have a problem with that, okay. And as I'm looking at it, I'm wondering about, locations that do not qualify include, I wonder if we should move residences to the first in the list. So it would be residences, hotels, motels, and if you even want them locations where people stay overnight at the end or something like that, but I guess I would be in favor of, I think we should put residences up front at this point. Bucks had to go through quite a bit. For someone just to do it out of their home it's not really fair, right? And then we'll have another problem with that. There's certainly gonna be legal issues with that as well, so that would be it. Locations not qualifying, or whatever I had said before, but residences, hotels, motels, and locations where people stay overnight.
So the change would be cannabinoid product retail establishment means a business that sells cannabinoid products, including incidental sales, where retail functions as the primary use of property. Locations that do not qualify would be residences, hotels, and motels.
And locations where people stay overnight, because it keeps it open, because we've got short-term
Yep.
rentals, we've got.
Okay.
Can you read that one more time, because I think there was one thing, locations that.
Locations that do not qualify are residences,
yes.
hotels, motels, and where people stay overnight.
Yep.
Okay. I put that change in. With that change, I'll need a motion and a second for us to make this amendment.
Make a motion.
All right, you made a motion to update, chapter 3, section 311. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Question, do you have to approve the specific resolution number
Should.
with the changes described earlier?
You report it. I mean, if you're passing the resolution, it's what's in front of it. Normally, for purposes of the record, it's helpful to identify it, but what ultimately matters is what gets printed, in other words, what gets published.
So this is just the amendment.
So
that's
since
getting
they verbally motioned what the actual change is,
Right.
without the resolution number, we can still publish that resolution number with those changes.
Exactly
Okay.
right.
Okay. Number 9, Public Works, sidewalk repairs. And the culvert on West.
Yeah. Tim, did you talk to Kevin at all
Yeah.
about any of the sidewalk stuff, or?
How about I take the sidewalks, you take
Yeah.
the culvert?
Okay.
So, yeah, I talked to Kevin, and he got a number of proposals for fixing the sidewalk here at the municipal building that was torn up during the sewer line replacement or repair. And then there's a section downtown that requires repair as well. As I stated, he got a number of bids, and I would like to make a motion that we approve repairs to sidewalks. And let me get to the firm. The firm that came in with a low bid and equal bid on the downtown area was Mid-State Masonry, so I'd make a motion that Mid-State Masonry be approved per their proposals to repair both sidewalks.
Do I have a second to approve Mid-State Masonry?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm just gonna look at some of wow, that is low compared to the others.
And we were able to get 2 bids for the downtown one, so I think it'd be nice to have the same contractor do both.
Yeah.
So long as the price is the same.
I agree.
Well, I appreciate Kevin going out.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys helped too, so I appreciate all our hard work getting the bids.
At least not for me. This
You
was
did all
all
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay,
We get a second, we got a second, so all those in favor of approving Mid-State Masonry for the sidewalk repairs, say aye.
Aye. Okay.
Can I just make a clarification on the sidewalk repair here will go against the sewer fund? Because it was part of that project.
Thank you.
Right.
It should.
Right.
That for accounting purposes.
Right. Okay, then also, West Street, the intersection of West and Grove, one of the culverts there is, has collapsed. And so we need to do kind of like an emergency repair on it. It rusted out, and with the garbage trucks and the plow truck and everything, it caved in, so. And it's buried real high in the ground, so there's not much coverage over it, you know, just the asphalt and a little bit of gravel only. So anyway, I found, some heavy pipe that we can put in for a culvert there. And, cost of the pipe is gonna be around $3,000. 45 feet of 1/2 inch, 14-inch pipe. And then, I'm guessing probably around 1,500 to have, somebody dig for the guys. The guys will saw the asphalt. And so all it's really gonna be is just like one of the locals come do the backhoe work, put that pipe in.
So.
So do we wanna go for like, do we wanna cap it at 5,000?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
to exceed 5,000?
Not to exceed, yeah.
And Public Works will actually do the work.
They'll do the work, and then we'll either get
Fill it back in.
one of the locals to put the backhoe to dig.
Okay.
And I'm guessing this would come out of our stormwater fund. Correct? I mean, it's managing
I
stormwater,
suppose
right?
it is, yes.
So that from an accounting perspective, again, that would be my recommendation.
Okay. So, I mean, it definitely needs to be fixed, so
Yep.
I'll need a motion and a second to approve the replacement of the culvert on Weston Grove and not to exceed $5,000.
I'll make a motion that we replace the culvert at Weston Grove, not to exceed $5,000, and it being charged against the stormwater fund.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion or question? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, Public Works, number 10 is the alarm phone dialer.
Do you want me to take this one, Lee?
Yeah.
So we have devices on our critical systems, both water and sewer, to alert us when there's alarms or other issues going on. Wells 3 and 4 require replacement equipment to function properly. So this proposal from Total Control Systems, which I believe was the only proposal Kevin was able to obtain after several attempts, is for wells number 3 and 4. So for $7,083, the proposal, as stated here, would bring us up to a workable situation for wells 3 and 4.
Okay. I need a motion and a second to approve the quote from Total Control Systems for wells 3 and 4, and then we can discuss further.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions?
So, what's wrong with the alarm we have now? Neither of them are working for either of these pumps, or what have we had in the past?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the past. They're non-functioning today. I will say that we'll be coming back with another proposal to get I think it's the main lift station,
Yep.
is it one?
Yep.
Down by the river. That dialer and alerting system also is not working. There's a landline that will need to be installed with that too, but we'll come back at a future date with that one. We weren't ready this week, or this month. But yeah, they're just non-functioning.
So there are alarms there, they're not functioning.
The alarms are the alarms are there,
Okay.
but they're resident. They're not being communicated out via cell phone. So either Paul or Kevin, unless they drive by and see a light flashing
Or somebody
or
calls.
go there and inspect it, yeah. And I'm not sure what caused the failure, if it was lightning or whatever
The one
cause was.
The one they said was lightning.
Okay. So, the life expectancy of these, we don't know. I mean, if it's lightning, that obviously.
Right, acts of
Issue.
nature, other than a electrical surge or lightning strike or something like that, my guess is they probably have a 10-year life expectancy. It's electronics and it's not in the greatest location from an environmental perspective.
Any other questions? No, anything to add? Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and vote to approve the quote for Total Control Systems for wells 3 and 4 for $7,083. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, next up, Public Works for crack and seal repair. What streets are these on?
God, I can't remember, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. It's just, it wasn't listed on the, it's not listed on the quote, what streets they're going to, so I was just curious.
Just trying to remember.
Was it West Street that was done last year?
Oh, yeah. Was that paved last year?
Maybe not, maybe that was crack seal then. Sorry, I don't have it.
No, that's okay.
Not totally sure.
So the quote is $6,300.
Yeah, it's for 3,000 feet.
And mind, we only have the one quote at this point.
We do, and I'm trying to remember what Kevin had stated. I think, believe this firm had a history with doing it and historically had come in low. I'm not sure he solicited a second bid on this one. We can certainly ask for that. It can be a
Yeah.
contingent. Sometimes we're just not able to get a second.
Yeah, I know.
It's
I guess I'd
kind
like
of
to hear.
amazing to me these days that people
Yeah,
don't want to work. But we could certainly make the approval contingent upon obtaining a second quote. And if it was lower, to go with the lower.
I'd like to know the streets too.
Yeah, I would too. Is this, how urgent is this?
Well, it's getting kind of late now.
Well, it is.
We could, Lee, do you think we could put it off till next meeting?
The 25th.
Just so we get some more information, really.
Yeah, I think so.
Should we just postpone this and work on another quote? We'll put it back on.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll have some more days coming up.
Yeah.
You promise.
I'm planning golfing at the end of October, so.
Asphalt plants don't close until November, so we should be good until then anyway.
Okay. So let's go ahead and move, number 11 to the 25th. Michelle.
I will communicate that with Kevin.
Do we need a motion for that?
I don't think we need a motion or anything, do we?
No action.
Okay. All right.
All right, number 12 is to approve, or not approve, two applications for the HPC committee, Alyssa Otten and Randy Cry. We have both of their applications in the packet. I guess I need a second, or a motion and a second to approve their applications, so we can discuss further.
I'll make a motion that we accept both Alyssa and Randy's application for HPC.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I'm just curious, how many openings are there on HPC?
I think we're full now, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're full.
These would fill it?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Congratulations, or thank you to both of them for stepping up and getting involved.
Yep, I think it's wonderful. You're the first one to get everybody filled.
Yep.
Congratulations. All right, I don't really have any other discussion. Lee, do you have anything?
No,
All right, do we wanna, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approving Alyssa and Randy, say aye.
Aye.
Number 13 would be the HBC Preserve Minnesota 2023. We have 2 people attending that one, I believe.
One.
One, okay. And this is, it's not listed on here, who's going?
Jerry.
Just Jerry, okay, wonderful. So we don't know what this is gonna cost besides a hotel and travel. But is this, I know there was rumors that the tickets were still free, do we know that?
There are some, Jerry was talking to
Okay.
Michael Coop today.
Okay,
And the
Okay.
registration is $125.
it's 125,
It's
okay.
125 for 2 days, and then there's a grant that you have to apply for, but it's reimbursement.
Okay.
So,
I was working on that today.
hotel, food, what's
Hotel,
all
I mean, you
included?
have to pay for everything up front and then be reimbursed, so. Hotel, they had a block, I don't know if it's available anymore, but it was 151.
Okay.
for a
I heard
hotel.
the block was full.
Yeah, I'm assuming, because it ended on like the 6th or something.
But it's warm enough for a tent or something like
I
that.
mean, it's mandated, it was plenty of.
Sleeping upstairs. Okay, I'm fine with it. I think it's wonderful that we have somebody going. I know we were hoping for 2, but then maybe next year. I don't know, I mean, is that something we need to approve? Fritz? I mean, they have funding in their account.
So the question is,
Do we have to approve as a council for Jerry and to attend the?
at some point, you're gonna want.
We did with the fire department.
Yeah,
we
you're
did.
gonna
Okay.
want to get that, because it's an expenditure, it's an appropriation of funds.
And it does look like the city can, I'm looking at their website registration information, the city can actually process the payment or actually make the payment from City Hall.
For the 125? If their hotels are full, they won't be able to do that. We don't have a bank card, I know it sounds like money, we don't have a check card, so. Well, I'll need a motion and a second to approve Jerry Manson to attend the Preserve Minnesota 2023 in Mankato.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right. Any other?
I have a conflict of interest,
I know.
I think so.
All right, yeah, I think it's great, so I'm all for it. Any other discussion, Tim? Have anything?
No, I think when there are opportunities for any of our commissions to attend an educational session or anything that's applicable to what they're charged to do, I think it's a great idea.
Lee, anything you want to add?
No.
All right. Let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approving Jerry Anderson to attend the Preserve Minnesota 2023, say aye.
Aye.
Number 14, I wanted to discuss with everybody a new possible city council meeting start time. Some of our employees have asked me if we could start a little earlier, because they'd like to get home. I personally would like to get home with my kids too at a decent time, but, so that's why I wanted to put it on there. I wanted to see what people had. I put 6, it can be changed. Basically, we're just kind of discussing the opportunity to do that, especially with us going into winter. It's gonna be darker, obviously. I guess my thought is we start at 6 and we put a 2-hour cap. We do have a second meeting every month available to us to finish anything that we can't get to. I'm guessing these aren't gonna get any smaller, but maybe they will. So, I guess, I'm gonna make a motion, because I put it on here, that we change council meeting start times to 6 PM with a 2-hour time limit.
Could I make a friendly amendment to that?
Sure.
Could we treat these two separately?
Sure.
Because I don't have any issue with the 6 o'clock start time personally. I'd like to talk more about the time limit though.
Okay, well, I'll make amendment, we'll first talk about start times. I make a motion to change our start time to 6 PM versus 7 PM for council meetings.
I'll second that.
All right.
And then some discussion on
Just
that.
discussion just on start.
Right, start time. City attorney, does that work for you?
I serve at the council's
Okay.
pleasure. You know, it's, at 5:30, that works.
Okay.
I've had one city do that for the same reason, and they figured that if everybody was hungry, the meetings would last. Which largely was true, I might say. But that's entirely up to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have anything else, I just wanted to check with Fritz.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Anything else on the start time?
I'm flexible. It's not an issue for me. I was just curious if a lot of people commute. I see people here, pretty much the same faces all the time. And we are broadcasting, typically, we will be. So I think people have more access. I'm okay with the 6 o'clock start time. If we hear something different, if we hear a big clamoring that a lot of people can't make it here at 6, we can always change our mind.
Yep, most definitely.
Mr. Mayor, if I can suggest that you're going to post it very visibly and let people know.
Yep. We'll add it on, well, if it passes, we'll put it on the website. We'll make sure we post it out inside too. And if anybody wants to post it on Facebook, they can. I don't see any of that anymore.
And agendas, double check the agendas, packets and everything, so the time changes, right? Okay.
Okay, any other discussion?
Nope.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and vote, change the start time to 6 PM for all city council meetings. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, second one would be, I would like to discuss putting possible time limits on meetings. I had 2 hours in my mind. Obviously, if there's serious issues that we need to sit here for 4 hours or 3 hours like we like to, we can do that, but I mean, I guess I'm looking at it as it's gonna force us to move a little faster, and then everybody gets to go home at a decent time. So, that was my thought process, so.
Do we need to motion for
Yeah, I guess,
discussion?
I'll make
okay.
the motion on the time limit.
I'll second.
Okay. Tim?
What I'd like to see before we put a time limit on is us to be more disciplined in our meetings. And I think if we just put a time limit on it, I don't think any of, and this is me included, any of the things that prolong a meeting are gonna continue to go. So what I would propose we do is have the mayor and another council member come up with some rules of order, because I can appreciate how difficult it is to be a presider without a real set of guidelines to go by. You know, I've stated my opposition to, excuse me, adding agenda items the night of the meeting, unless they're, you know, emergent or time sensitive. I think that's one thing that just adds to the length of our meetings as well. And then I'm not sure how the discussions are supposed to go from a kind of Robert's Rules of Orders perspective. I know I've looked at some, and you're limited to 2 minutes of conversation on a topic, and if, you know, it can go back and forth once, and then you're done, and that's all you get. As much as I appreciate the public comment, I think we've stated 2 minutes, but we've let people talk for 5 or 10 minutes. So I think from a discipline perspective, we need to get our house in order, if you will, before we put a time limit on this. That's just my perspective, and I'd certainly be willing to help draft something.
Well, we're looking at a little over 2.5 hours here tonight, which really isn't that bad. No. But I agree with Tim that we should, you know, get everything in a row. Stay on task.
I'm gonna sort of agree with him, I think, on some things, and maybe not the others. I don't like the time limit, basically because this is our job, this is what we're here to do, and I'll do my best to stay as late as I need to. The rules of order, and it is tiring, you know, it does get long, and I know, Mayor, you said that we try and speed things up a little bit, and that kind of concerns me because I think a lot of people have important stuff that they want to say. I would not be in favor of limiting public comment in, you know, if anything, maybe 5 minutes, but certainly not, I would not be in favor of limiting the citizens' ability and time to speak. As far as rules of order, I think that's a very good idea. I think we could move things along quite a bit faster if we had some sort of discipline. I think that's a good thing that we should consider. And we did go long. We have a relatively new council. We're learning ourselves, right? We had some very big issues that we've had to deal with right away, and now with the cannabis and the cannabinoid and everything else that's coming up. So I think the people need to be heard, and I think we need to have our time to express our thoughts and our opinions. As far as adding agenda items, I don't think I'm in full agreement with Councilmember Grote. I had an agenda item that I added tonight basically because it got missed by staff, so it was requested and it didn't make it. And I thought it, certainly with the budgets going on, it was relevant. I don't think we've had too many agenda items being added. There's been some controversial ones maybe, and that takes some time. But if we're moving up to 6, I think we already have an extra hour in there. And at this point, I don't see the need to actually put a time limit on it.
And that would be my hope too, if we get the discipline in place. I think too, when there are certain meetings or agenda items we have that maybe should be the sole agenda item, I'm thinking of our audit. You know, now we've got some experience, we know what agenda items are gonna take a long time. Maybe that's a special meeting, like we've done with budgets.
Well said.
So,
Fritz, you gave me a book, or you showed me a copy of the book. I know you do. I don't have a picture of it anymore, but it wasn't Robert's Rule of Orders. You gave, so
could you get us, or could you give me a copy of the name of that? Can you send that to us, and I'll make sure I get it?
Sure, what that is, just so you know, I mean, everybody's heard of Robert's Rules. Robert's Rules is very arcane. Everybody loves to trip other people up with little things with Robert's Rules that have very little to do with productively running a meeting. And so they're the National Organization of Parliamentarian, whatever, there is such a thing, has adopted a modern rules and procedures for organizations, which is largely recommended by the LMC, for example, even those things. The only time I've had to really get tripped up with Robert's Rules, which I know more than I ever cared to, is because some cities are trying to do the right thing and actually incorporated it by ordinance, so that everybody would know what the rules are supposed to be. I have no problem at all sending you a copy of that, and making whatever copies need to happen, so everybody has that. It's all very sensible and straightforward. If I just offer a couple of comments, Mr. Mayor. Sure. 2.5 hours is nothing. It's delightful. It's like a breeze by the ocean coming to meetings up here. You don't realize how grim they can actually be, as grim as some of these may seem. So I wouldn't be quite so hard on yourselves. I think moving the meeting time up is probably a good idea for you. And some of it is just courtesy and remembering and being mindful of the length of meetings sometimes. Sometimes you gotta do it. Sometimes you gotta do it. But I wouldn't, I saw one 11 o'clock deadline, for example, that was my one city that loved 6-hour meetings. And the reason they had that, though, the justification for that was that in order to go beyond that, required a majority of council members to vote in favor. Otherwise, the information or the agenda got continued to the next meeting. And the reason for that was at 11 o'clock, at a certain point, I think maybe 9 o'clock was suggested tonight, but at a certain point, you stop being productive. And I think that's pretty widely recognized. So for a reason, something like that, if it's something that you genuinely do, and you've got very long agendas, and some cities do, that makes some sense. I can see that. But, and you can do what you want. I mean, if you say, two hours is what we're going to do, you can do that. But I would suggest that you want to articulate a reason for that, public policy reason for that. There are reasons to do that. But I'm just offering my own observation to say that these aren't grinders, believe me. As hard as some of them have been, I mean, there are cities that routinely will go well beyond midnight. These seem to love it. I don't know that I don't represent any of them. But there are some out there. Anyway, thank you. I just consider those observations, and I'd be more than happy to actually send the city.
Okay, wonderful. Oh, well, obviously, I'm not naive enough to think that I would even have anybody vote for what I want to do. And it wasn't really just because I don't want to be here for 2 hours, because I like being here. But I guess more towards 11 o'clock in my mind. But until then, I like Tim's idea. I think maybe we can get together, two of us, and kind of come up with our own rules that we can put in play for future councils too. Just because eventually there's going to be
Right.
new people again. So.
Just one thing I wanted, as Fritz was talking, I think what we should do, us that are not at a point in our lives when we're raising children, is recognize and thank you for the sacrifice you're making. Because I know that's always on your mind as well. And that might have been behind us a little bit. You're carrying a heavy load, that's the right thing to say, but that is a sacrifice that you're making and away from your family. So hopefully if we move things up, you'll be able to get to some games, some more games or something like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I guess we'll just.
I'm not against revisiting it.
Yeah.
I think we got to get our house in order first.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and put that on the back burner and think about it and come up with two council members. I'd like Larry to be here if he can, to have that discussion on who wants to get on the committee to put our rules of order together. So I would like to just end that discussion. We don't need a vote, and I'd like a motion and a second to adjourn our meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Sorry. We do have a meeting on the 25th. It's just to approve the agenda. It's going to be very light, hopefully, unless something major happens. So September 25th will be our next meeting at 6 p.m. So, okay, sorry.
6 p.m. Thank you, I'll repeat that. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody. Our call. Had this evil smile on it too, and it said, no. It's not 11 o'clock.